Hey, this is Steven from Wild Stuff. Welcome to the show. This video is my review of the Fenix TK20R v2.0, Fenix's latest 3000 lumen flashlight with a twin tail switch, a concealed charging port, and a super long throwing distance. I'll give you a tour of the light and its main features, do side-by-side comparisons with some other current model Fenix lights, and then we'll take it outside and shine it around. First up, I should acknowledge that I received this light by applying to Fenix's Global Reviewer program, where they send you one for testing and review. I was fortunate to be selected, and thank you very much to Fenix for this opportunity. However, my review will still be honest and unbiased, and if my application hadn't been successful, I was still planning to buy one anyway. And I won't waste your time reading out the full list of tech specs, physical dimensions, and battery run times. All this information is readily available with a quick Google search. The TK20R v2.0 adopts the same dual tail switch design as the popular TK16 series, making it super easy to operate with one hand without needing to fumble for a secondary switch on the side of the light or take your eyes off what you're shining it at. The larger button can be soft pressed for momentary on or firmly clicked for switching on and off. The mechanism provides a sturdy, tactile and satisfying click. The smaller button toggles through the different brightness settings, Eco, Low, Medium, High and Turbo, or held down for strobe. Unlike the TK16 series, the mode button here now also has a small but audible click of its own. The TK20R v2.0 also has memory mode and will turn on in the last used power setting. As a motorbike rider, I was pleased to find the switches easy enough to operate even while wearing my leather riding gloves, so it shouldn't be a big issue for people in cold climates wearing winter gloves either. Another standout feature on the TK20R v2.0 is the concealed USB charging port. Fenix opted to hide the charging port underneath a sturdy ring that rotates on screw thread around the body. This is a much better way to protect the charging port than a traditional rubber port cover, as those little rubber flaps don't tend to last very long when you carry them in your pocket every day. Underneath you'll find a USB-C charging port, and on the other side you'll find an LED battery indicator that gives an idea of how much charge is left in the battery. The TK20R v2.0 is powered by a single 21700 battery with a 5000 mAh Fenix battery included in the package. There's no charging port built into this battery, so you charge it in the light itself or a separate charger if you have one. This battery is a little larger and a lot more powerful than the more common 18650 batteries used in smaller lights. It has a generously sized reflector cone and a striking bezel with large nodules. Although not quite as aggressive as the TK16 v2.0's bezel, it would still be quite capable of breaking a window. It also fits comfortably in the hand when held in the hammer fist position. On the side you'll find a removable one-way pocket clip. The TK20R v2.0 fits comfortably into a side trouser pocket, even with a small wallet in there too. Though, being one of the larger lights in my collection, I wouldn't describe it as an everyday carry kind of light. As with every Fenix light I've used, the build quality is top notch. It feels solid and well constructed, and nothing about it feels flimsy or weak. The rotating port cover twists tight and smoothly, the buttons are firm and clicky, and there's no dangly rubber flaps to worry about. And Fenix claims it has an IP68 rating, meaning it should handle being submerged up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes or so.
Whoops.
In the box you get the light itself, shown here with the pocket clip and lanyard attached, a Fenix 5000 mAh 21700 battery, a nice little belt pouch, a USB-C charging cable, the usual paperwork, warranty info, etc., and a couple of spare O-rings. Here in Australia, the TK20R v2.0 sells for $204.95 in Australian dollars or $129.95 in US dollars from the various dealers in the USA. Fenix Australia likes to run 15% off sales from time to time, which can soften the blow to your credit card. In the quest to build better and brighter flashlights in smaller, more pocketable bodies, an inevitable byproduct is heat, and the TK20R v2.0 is no exception. It gets hotter a lot quicker than the rest of my flashlight collection. To put it to the test, I grabbed the end of the flashlight, keeping my fingers clear of the actual light beam, switched it onto turbo mode, and timed how long it took to become too hot to hold anymore. It took mere seconds to get pretty toasty warm. By 30 seconds I was gritting my teeth, and by 40 seconds it was burning hot and painful and I had to stop. Compare this with the TK16 version 2, which despite having an additional 100 lumens of output, I was able to last 2 minutes before I felt it was burning me. After giving it plenty of time to cool down, the next little test I did was to see how long it would run in turbo mode before dropping back down to a lower setting. I put the TK16 version 2 next to it for comparison. The TK20R version 2 stepped down after 57 seconds. The TK16 version 2 soldiered on without wavering until I got bored watching it and turned the timer off after 4 minutes. That's another win for the TK16 in terms of heat management. Now for some physical side-by-side comparisons. Now I know most of these are completely different styles of light, but hopefully giving you an idea of relative sizes and proportions will help you decide which light is right for you. First up, the TK20R version 2 compared with the PD35R, my well-loved everyday carry of many years. Obviously a completely different style of light. They both take the same kind of battery, but that's about where the similarities end. You can see the duct tape holding the rubber port cover down on my PD35R. Next, compared with the PD35 version 3. This is my current favourite everyday carry light. It's much more pocket friendly due to its smaller size and 18650 battery. Next we have the TK11 TAC. This is an 18650 powered tactical light with a rotating lockout and mode dial just in front of the tail switch and no provision for attaching a lanyard. While they have an overall similar shape to each other, the TK20R is noticeably longer and just a touch thicker. Next up is the PD40R version 2. This 3000 lumen light casts a very impressive beam, but it's let down by losing access to turbo mode once the battery drops below 80% charge. They're pretty close to the same size except for the TK20R's additional length, and the TK20R's striking bezel is a bit more aggressive. Next, the TK16 version 2. I figure a lot of people watching this video would be trying to decide between the TK20R version 2 and the TK16 version 2. The TK16 is the closest match construction-wise to the TK20R, with the only real differences being the TK16 has no concealed charging port, no battery light indicator, has a much more aggressive striking bezel, has an older style lanyard, and is overall a little shorter in length. Otherwise they have the same size reflector cone, the same style of dual tail switch, even mostly the same textured grip. And finally the LR35R. This light is in a totally separate class with 10,000 lumens, 6 LEDs and two 21700 batteries, but I wanted to show you what it looked like here because I'll also give you a beam comparison when we take them outside later in the video. So I've got a blank, light coloured wall about 7 feet away from the camera, and I'll cycle you through some beam comparisons. Now this is by no means an indication of absolute brightness, as I've had to deliberately underexpose the image so we can still see the details of the hotspots without the image being completely blown out. It all appears much brighter in person. First up, this is the TK20R version 2 on the left, compared with the PD35R on the right. You can see the TK20R pumping almost double the lumens into a slightly narrower beam, resulting in a much more intense hotspot. Next I've swapped out the PD36R for the PD35 version 3. The two hotspots here are similar in size, but the PD35 has a more distinct edge and noticeably less side spill. Like I said in my review of the PD35, I suspect its candela rating might be a little understated on the spec list, as it seems to be a lot more impressive than the numbers would suggest, and here it is holding its own against the TK20R version 2, despite a massive difference in candela rating. Next up is the TK11 TAC. You can see the TK20R version 2 dominating here, with its much larger output focused into a similar sized hotspot. Then we have the PD40R version 2. Both these lights are evenly matched at 3000 lumens, and the PD40R has a slightly wider hotspot and a bit more side spill, but falls just short of matching the TK20R's intensity at the centre of the beam. Next is the TK16 version 2. Despite the extra 100 lumens, the TK16 has a noticeably wider hotspot, so it can't match the centre intensity of the TK20R version 2. The TK20R takes all its 3000 lumens and jams them into a smaller area, which gives it that 475 meters of throw that Fenix claims in the spec list. And finally, compared against the LR35R. Now this is kind of an unfair comparison, as I'm comparing a 3000 lumen light against a 10,000 lumen light with 2 batteries and 6 LEDs. But the stated candela ratings of these two lights are almost the same, meaning it's a pretty close match in terms of centre brightness and throw. Now here we are outside. The larger trees at the back are about 50 metres or 165 feet from where I'm standing. I've got the TK20R version 2 in my left hand, and then I'll add the PD35R in my right hand. Again, you can see the TK20R has a tight and narrower beam, and it's much more intense due to having almost double the lumens. And now with the PD35 version 3. Again, the PD35 is punching really well for such a tiny light with much lower specifications, but the TK20R is still outperforming it. Here it is with the TK11 TAC. Results here are similar to the PD36R comparison, and the TK20R easily overpowers it. And now with the PD40R version 2. The PD40R does put up a good fight, provided it's got a full battery, but the extra 16,000 candela on the TK20R is still quite noticeable. And now with the TK16 version 2. Imagine if you took the beam from the TK16 and squished it down slightly into a tighter, narrower angle, and then stretched the overall throwing distance from 380 meters up to 475, then that's pretty much what the TK20R's beam is. It is a struggle to do it justice on camera, but it is quite impressive. And finally with the LR35R. Boom! There really is no contest here in the overall wow factor. The LR35R is incredible, but like I said earlier, there's only a marginal difference between these two lights in terms of their candela ratings. Looking right at the centre of the beam, it is hard to discern one as being brighter than the other. Now for my summary list of pros and cons. The first main point to be clear on, this is, to my understanding, Fenix's most powerful flashlight, at least among their models that can fit in a trouser pocket and be run from a single battery. The Fenix TK20R version 2 outthrows all their other comparable lights, such as the PD40R version 2 and the TK16 version 2. They do make bigger and brighter lights, such as the LR series, but you won't be tucking one of those neatly into your pocket, and you'll be paying a lot more money. The dual tail switch is fantastic. You get fast, easy and convenient access to all modes with just your thumb, without the need to change your grip or take your eyes off what you're shining it at. The concealed charging port is very well designed and implemented. The rotating port cover is strong and secure and blends seamlessly into the overall aesthetic of the light. It fits neatly into a trouser pocket. It's not really what I'd call an everyday carry-sized light, but it's convenient enough to go anywhere. It performs well through a good range of battery life. I found it to function quite well, including turbo mode, well below the 50% mark. That's where the battery light is on solid red. It was only once the battery light began flashing red, I think at around 25 or 30% battery, that it began to behave erratically, with no access to turbo and constant downshifting to the lower modes. This is the perfect light for self-defense and home security. If you give an intruder a good blast in the face with the TK20R version 2, especially after they've been creeping around at night and their eyes have adjusted to the dark, it's going to take a few minutes before they can see again, giving you a good opportunity to either escape or launch your own offensive defense, so to speak, and a hammer fist strike from the bezel of the TK20R to the head or any other bony area is going to cause a lot of damage. This is particularly useful if you live in a country like Australia, where in the eyes of the law, the perpetrator is the real victim and the victim is the perpetrator. A law-abiding citizen here has no option to carry firearms, blades, tasers or sprays. You'd probably get arrested for threatening an intruder with a rolled-up newspaper. So a quality flashlight is the next best thing, and the TK20R version 2 ticks all the right boxes for this. And now onto the cons. Now this list is short, but the first point here is an important one. It gets very hot, very quickly, and a lot more so than any of Fenix's other comparable lights. I had difficulties in filming the beam shots on my wall from earlier in the video, because even with just a short sequence of 30 or 40 second clips, it was becoming uncomfortable to hold and was downshifting from turbo to high in the middle of recording. I found myself blowing on it like hot food on a fork and had to rest it for a couple of minutes between takes to complete the sequence. So the TK20R version 2 is really only suitable for short bursts in turbo mode. If you want 3000 lumens for more than 50 seconds or so at a time, get the TK16 version 2. I'm still yet to see my TK16 step down from overheating in actual usage, or even during the 4-minute test I recorded for this video. And finally, at over 200 Aussie dollars or 130 US dollars, this is a sizable investment. Yes, there are lots of lovely features packed into this light, but unless you're a fanatical flashlight collector or have a specific need for the 475 metre throwing distance, it would be hard to justify the extra cost over the TK16 version 2, which at the moment is 160 Aussie dollars or 100 US dollars. So, is this the torch for you? If you're considering buying the TK20R version 2, make sure you also watch my review of the TK16 version 2. Both are excellent lights and choosing between them would be difficult. Personally, I'm leaning towards the TK16 as still being my favourite light, on account of its slightly smaller size and better heat management. But the TK20R's 475 metre throw and fantastically engineered charging port are very appealing and could be enough to sway you towards it. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more reviews and adventures.